Just how long does it take to design a logo? Hey folks, and welcome along to my latest video. Today we're going to talk about how long does it take to design a logo. Now there are a few things that can affect the timescale of logo design, and the main thing is the process that your designer will go through when creating your logo. I thought what would be helpful for you is if I run through my logo design process today to give you an idea of how much attention to detail I take in that process. And you can then compare that with other designers and see if they are someone that you want to work with, or if you would rather work with a designer who follows a similar process to my own. So let's take a look at that process and see what I do. So step one in that process is probably one of the most important things, and that is to meet the client. Now, wherever possible, I'd like to meet the client in person. If they can't travel, then a video call is the next best thing. Now, why do I do that? The reason I do that is because I like to see eye to eye with someone and speak to them face to face, because you can pick up on little mannerisms and things when you're asking questions that maybe the client's not giving the full answer, or it's an answer that they're unsure of. But by seeing them in person or on the video, you can ask them to clarify or maybe open up a little bit more by doing so. By having the client on video, sometimes when they're giving an answer, you can just tell by the way they're acting or their mannerisms that the answer is not a full one, or they want to say a bit more but they're maybe a little bit unsure of their answer. You can help by just coaxing that answer out of them, and by doing that it means that you can find out if that client's a great fit for you, and also if you're a good fit for your client. This is hugely important, and I've found that out over the years, that if the client relationship with you isn't the best, then the project may struggle. So it's important that at the very beginning you find out if you can work really well with that client. So step two, after I've had the initial meeting with the client and find out their design brief, I will go ahead and create a project proposal, which basically just outlines everything that we've talked about and gives a plan of attack that I will take to create that client's new logo. Once the client has received the proposal and approved it, I will then send them an invoice for 50% of my design fee, and once paid, we can then move on to step three. Step three, again, most of these steps are important, but step three is the research stage. Now, in this stage, what I will do is I will research the client's business area, their services, their products, and in the case of a rebrand, I will look at the client's current brand assets and see what they've been using and see how they've been targeting customers in the past, and whether that's something that we will take forward, or we maybe need to look at a new plan of attack for that and readjust their brand message and strategy. I'll also look at my client's competitors. By doing that, we can see if we can leverage an advantage for my client's new branding. Sometimes competitors can drop the ball and their branding is just really poor. Maybe it's a safe market and they feel they don't need to take a step up and have some professional looking branding. So this can be a stage where my client can really jump ahead of the game in terms of their brand identity over their competitors. After the research stage, what I'll then do is I will go into step four, which is my inspiration stage. I'll look at my logo reference library. I will visit inspirational logo websites, because what that does is that just kind of gets the gears kicking in and the creative juices flowing for this project. I'm not looking for any guidance or any specific type of logo at this point. All I'm doing is I'm just kind of getting my brain into logo design mode, and by looking at inspirational logos and other designers, it really gets you in the mood for the next step. Step 5 is sketching. I love using my sketchbook. I'm not the best at drawing. And I think that's a misconception, is that a lot of people think graphic designers are really good at drawing. That's an illustrator. That's an illustrator's job. They're really good at drawing. Me, I'm really good at concepts and ideas when it comes to my sketchbooks. I'll just maybe use a couple of lines just to get the flow or an idea out of my head. It doesn't matter how messy, how loose it is. It's all about just getting everything, doing a brain dump onto your sketchbook to get all of these concepts that you can potentially have into a book and solidified so that it's there. The next step, step 6, is another important step. You have to take time away from the project. So I've spent a lot of time up till now researching, sketching, and just really putting a lot of focus into these early steps. So it's important that I take time away so that I can just let my brain forget about it, come back a few days later, look at my sketchbook and look at it in a critical way and look at some of the design and the concepts that I thought were great at the time as they were coming out in this flow of consciousness, and then go, well, actually, that's not such a great fit for what we're trying to do for this client. So taking time to kind of move away so that you're not, what's that saying, you can't see the wood for the trees. You need to take that time to let your brain come at it from a fresh point of view. Stage 7, it's time to get digital. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take maybe up to sort of 6 concepts, take them into Adobe Illustrator, which is my software of choice for logo design, and I will work up those concepts and polish them off and get to see them how they look on screen in a more finished way. What I'll do is I will work on those and I will narrow it down to 3 final concepts. I will work in black. I do not work in color. Color can have a lot of effect on how the client sees the logo and also how I see the logo. So it's important that we just work in black right now so that we're focusing on the shape and the form of the logo. There may be some, if it's a word mark, then obviously we'll be looking at typography and fonts. If it's not a word mark, but it's more of a brand icon, then what we'll do is, or what I will do is, I will take a very basic type font just to set it up so that I can see the balance of the shape with some text. I won't go into any finalized font choices just yet. That's in a later stage. So once I've got those 3 concepts all solidified, I then go into the next step, which is the second client meeting. Again, I'd like this one to be face-to-face so that when I show the client the concepts, then I can get and gauge a reaction from them. That can be difficult to do if it's by email or even by telephone. By face-to-face meeting, then I can see whether there's any sort of leaning back from it, or if they're kind of, oh, I like that one. I think that's important that you have face-to-face meetings with a client when you're at this critical part of the design journey. Now, you can also find out whether the client is giving you feedback based on a critical viewpoint of the logo being for their brand and their business, or if they are being very emotional about it and giving you their likes and dislikes. Now, this is important. Likes and dislikes are important, but this is where I always bring out the statement to my clients. The logo is not for you. The logo is for your customer base. So what we need to do is we need to ensure that this logo is going to trigger an emotion with your customer, which will then bring up brand associations for your customer. You need to, as a client, take a step back and try to think of your logo from a customer's point of view and not a personal business owner point of view. And once I can get the client back onto that track, we'll then relook at the concepts and take it from a viewpoint of, okay, is this going to work for your service, your product, and be effective at pulling in new customers and also helping current customers just associate with your brand. After that meeting, I'll go into step 9, which is the refining process. Here we'll take, and I've narrowed it down to one final concept. I will take that concept and do a few variations of it, tweaking little parts of it, and at this point I will finalize the typography that needs to go with the logo, but we're still working in black. No color has been introduced as of yet. So we've now got that concept and we've got a few variations of it. Now in step 10, we start to add the color. Color can be dangerous. And what I mean by that is that everyone has different color tastes. And a bit like what I said earlier on about the logo is not for you, we need to make sure that the colors we're choosing work in the interests of the brand and the logo design itself, and it's not about personal taste. So for example, take red as a colour. Red can be seen as passionate, bold, energetic, fiery, but it can also mean danger and a warning or a stop sign, so that every colour has its positives and its negatives. And we need to look at colour to make sure that it's a good fit for their industry. Now it may be that they want to really stand out and be bold and not kind of blend in with all the other businesses in their industry. So for example, say it was the financial sector, which in the main use blue. Blue is a safe colour, but my client may want to use a bright pink or even a bright red, just to stand out that little bit more. So colour can play a really crucial part in your logo. Once the colour's sorted and agreed, I'll then move on to step 11, which is logo presentation. Now, up until this point, I've been working with the client and we have been working on the logo on a white canvas. So the logo is there, it's in isolation and it's flat and it's in a sea of white. What I will do now is I will take the client's logo design and I will present it in various mock-ups. So for example, stationery design, or how it might look on the side of a vehicle, or some shop signage. There are lots of different ways that we can use this. Promotional items is another one which is really good. By doing that, that lets the client really visualize how their logo will appear to their customers on caps, on pens, on cars, as I've mentioned. And it really lets them see, and at this point they get excited because it's now getting very real. And it's one of my favorite parts of the process, is creating these mock-ups, because I can see as well, wow, this is going to be really great here. Oh, and we can take small sections of this logo and use it here. It really gets the ideas going and on how we can actually utilize the logo design. Next step, I will create logo style guides. Now this is basically a document that the client can use in future if they want to give their logo to another designer to create a piece of artwork. The logo guide basically outlines fonts, colours, sizing and spacing. Those are the basic ones, but it will basically say, do not use this colour, always use this colour. If it's going to appear on a dark background, then you must use this version. It just keeps a consistency for the client's logo, and consistency is key in terms of awareness, so that people are gradually built up, even subconsciously, to being aware of this new brand and this new logo. I wouldn't say the logo guidelines are, set in stone, but they are there, as the name suggests, as a guide to keeping the logo as close as possible to its original form. Then we're on to step 13, which is basically me invoicing the client. Once the client has paid the final balance, I will send them their logo in all the major file formats: Adobe Illustrator, EPS, SVG, JPEG, TIFF, PNG, and I will also assign copyright over to the client. That's just a simple form that just says the client is now the copyright holder of that logo design. Whew, that's a lot of steps, isn't it? It just goes to show how much work goes into creating a logo. It's not a quick turnaround project. If you're looking to have your logo designed, rather than going to somewhere like Fiverr.com or Etsy, where you're only going to get charged a few pounds or a few dollars, and they're saying you'll get your logo within 24 hours, warning signs. As you can see here, I have a 13-step process. I believe everyone should follow a process similar to that, and that's going to take 2 to 4 weeks if it's followed correctly. So if you want to have a successful end result for your logo, then I would say, how long does a logo take? About 2 to 4 weeks. If you've liked this video, please make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you think anyone that you know would be interested in watching this video, please share it with them. And until I see you next time, stay creative, folks.